Hotline League is brought to you by Omen by HP. And we'll get to the rest very shortly. Ben Fisher, 22, is joining the call. Ben Fisher, I feel like you've been on the show before. Is this true?
No, it's not true.
Oh, I've just seen you maybe in the chat before. You're very recognizable because I think you
Oh,
have a Ron Paul picture on Discord.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, but long time watcher, first time caller.
Okay. Where are you
Nice.
calling
Ben,
from?
how old are you?
I'm 20.
Fuck, why you have 22 at the end?
I don't know. I made it when I was like 12. I think it was it was
Okay.
like the Google recommended when I put in Ben Fisher.
I don't think
Sorry,
you're legally allowed to have an account at 12. Ben Fisher, where are you calling from?
I'm in Charlottesville, Virginia right now.
Okay. And what do you want to talk about?
Yeah, so pretty much I feel like the whole idea of scouting in league seems like kind of BS right now. And it feels to me like it pretty much is just about what team picks you up, how successful the player ends up. I'm pretty curious what Kelby's thoughts are on this.
Wait, I mean, so you think that scouting doesn't exist and people are just attributing the success of
Are you saying
people's
scouting
scouting
doesn't
ability
exist?
based on
No,
how the
no,
player
no.
pans out, or
Or are
I
you
mean,
saying
it
like
doesn't
career
seem-
development specifically?
Yeah, it doesn't seem to matter too much like which player. I feel like you could put any rookie into TSM and he's gonna do really well. He's gonna end up being successful, right? Whereas you can put any rookie on Golden Guardians and they're gonna be shit, You have the Inoris and the Mike Youngs on Phoenix One with a little bit of pop off, but it feels like every rookie that gets picked up by these like top tier orgs, and maybe you could say that it's because of good scouting, but it seems like a little bit too good to me. It seems like it's mostly, and Mark was talking earlier about how players look better on better teams. It seems like if you're put in an environment to succeed, you'll succeed, and if you're put in an environment to fail, you'll fail. And the actual scouting itself doesn't seem to matter that much.
So I think that you're kind of right, except that you will, if you are in a
don't
better
agree with the vocabulary. That's what I don't agree with.
Right. I think that maybe what you're trying to say, and please correct me if you feel like I'm leading down the wrong path. What ultimately will happen is the better environment that you are put into, which may be different for each person and personality type, by the way, depending on how you're being developed, what development style you react to, and how the other personalities on your team work with as far as teammates, you will achieve your best result quickest. And ultimately, that can affect the long-term impact of your career, depending on what you learn and at what point in your career you learn it. And if you build bad habits and you get burnt out on shit and other stuff like that. And obviously, if you get put in a bad situation, I don't think necessarily you're doomed to be a bad player, but it's certainly going to put off you finding that situation where you become the player that you should be. Now, I think that some people have shown a really good aptitude for finding talent and being able to identify who will actually work in their system and what they value as a player, as opposed to what most people do, which is like, to be frank, the only people that can really identify and pick up professional League of Legends talent and put them in a situation where they're going to succeed are people who have a very strong understanding of not only the game, but male social dynamics. Because we have all male pro players right now, not to say that females couldn't exist in the pro scene. But like, I think that Reggie has been the best example of this up until this point, where he has pretty much exclusively picked winners and done so in situations where you could have had alternate higher profile choices that would have been what a lot of GMs probably would have taken as the easier, more secure move. And I think that let me finish real quick.
Okay.
I think that without Reggie, there is zero chance that TSM ends up at every spring and summer finals. I think that whenever things go rocky, that guy has such a fundamental core understanding of the game and knowing how to win that he is always the person that comes and get involved with the roster and gets them put on the right track. And he is the single most important development component to any North American League of Legends organization that has existed up to this point. I'm not gonna say for Korea or Europe or whatever, but
There's a lot of
But
people
you
that
don't
think
think-
Reggie's
Can
holding
I-
Team
can I
TSM back at
disagree?
international events. By the way.
Can I disagree yet, or are you still going?
no. I said go for it.
Somebody in Twitch
Okay.
chat a second ago said, "Look at Kelby being self-gratifying again," and yeah, can't agree more.
So I agree Reggie is like a huge factor in why TSM is good, but I think his roster decisions are some of the easiest fucking moves anyone has ever had to make, because literally everyone is dying to play for your org due to its size. And you just get to pick the cream of the crop. They have never developed a single player. They have exclusively
Bjerg
coached.
is a huge
He was
development.
already
Biofrost.
he was already Biofrost, I will maybe grant you, but hold on. Haunter was already crushing on Gravity. They picked up Bjerg after he was already crushing in Europe. Like I agree that they work. He was getting pentakills. He was already top 3 in Europe. He was already top 3
more
in
to
Europe.
talent development than just like, are you winning or are you not, right?
Well, right. So like Bjerg was a top 3 mid in Europe with Froggen and Expeke in their prime. Like he was a good player already. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they don't improve them, but they don't pick guys out of a hat and make them work like C9 has done to an extent. So I disagree. The one player that they really took.
Do you think that Jack is the guy at C9 who is picking these? Yeah.
Nope. I never. No. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
So like, but Glebe is one where they tried and it was a bomb. It just failed horribly. And then they bring in Must Boy and like, oh, they get Turtle. Well, that was after he already showed that he was a very competent player multiple times, and then they subbed him in after Chaos was being an idiot or whatever. So like, I disagree that TSM scouting is good. I think that they have the reputation and ability to get whoever they want once they stand out, which is what they tried to do again with Mike Young. And I think that's what they're really good at.
I mean, do you think there's really any players that you couldn't put into like this year's TSM roster that wouldn't be successful? Like in, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Would it matter who they pick?
Yeah, I think it does. I think because then you're left with like, well, who's making it good? Like, I think you can say a great example would be like TL has done a good job of identifying players who are good, and then they sign them, but the environment is not super conducive. And then when they move on, they start doing better. And so like that's a team where like Dom picked out a lot of those players. He was a guy who plays a lot of solo queue. He'd talk to the coaching staff, like this guy stood out. He was doing good shit. I liked him. And so like I think you can scout players and you can develop them. But I do think it is very contextual to not only how good the team is, but how good the like environment, like Kelby was saying.
Right. And where do you think that environment stems from in the TSM organization? Like, who is dictating that down?
Absolutely Reggie.
Yes.
And Bjerg. The two of them.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree that like they have a great environment there. I just don't think that they have taken like a rookie and like shown that they scouted them.
I would still make the argument that Bjerg is like, when you create a European, and we have seen other top European players come over to North America, especially in mid, a lot of them, and nobody has turned out to be a shade of what Bjerg has done in the NALCS. Granted, a lot of them haven't had as much time. Jensen's good, but Jensen is not Bjergsen, I would argue.
Yeah, he's better right now.
Oh, okay. Look at
historically, absolutely.
Here is Bjergsen's list of accomplishments. Yeah. You know what I'm going to say. And
Bjergsen's a lot more than like
real young when he picked him out. And yeah, he was a flashy talent. You know, somebody who looked really great. Not going to say like he was completely unknown, obviously, but he didn't take Froggen. He didn't take XPK. He had the burden of responsibility on his shoulders to have all of these choices. It is actually harder when you can pick from everybody.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes. You have a plethora of options out in front of you, and you now have to decide like they're all like which is actually the superstar that you're going for. When you only have so many people to choose from, then the amount of mistakes that you can make is fewer.
Yeah. I think your Liquid example would prove Kelby correct, right? Because they pick all of this great talent, but they could never make it work, right? Because they don't have the correct scouting talent, like Kelby's saying, which is personality.
Wait, that was the opposite of what I was saying.
I think Mark and I agree on a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I was saying TL scouting was good. Their environments were bad.
Right.
Right, but that would imply that picking for talent or like that there's more to identifying than just if you have all these players that you can pick from and just picking the best.
Well, sure. I'm not saying that you can throw synergy out the window, but if you go up to a buffet and it's like, hey, put a bunch of good food on my plate, and you're at a fucking top tier buffet, your likelihood of getting it right is substantially higher than if you're at some fucking bargain dollar club and it's like, hey, try and make a good appetizing meal there. So like, I fundamentally disagree that if you have to sort through the best talent in the world to come up with a team, it's more difficult than building a good roster of all NA players.
Right. No, you will for sure. You will have a stronger team, but to pick the generational talent, which I would define Bjergsen as right now, especially for the West, it is harder when you have everybody out in front of you and you have more secure bets. And he went for the riskier pick and he panned out the way that he did.
I think the problem is, like, Ben, you want to say it's all this or it's all that or it's not this at all, but in reality it's all these different factors together. Like a team like TSM has a lot of advantages because they're in a certain position, but then they've gotten themselves to that position because of just inherent skill sets that are available to them and resources that are available to them. Certain teams are better at scouting than others. I think Cloud9 is a really good example of a team where like they do great scouting. I mean, we were talking about this ahead of time, before the LCS even started. People were doubting Licorice, and I'm like, I just don't doubt Jack. Like, even if Jack, I don't know how he handles his scouting. Surely it's not him sitting there watching all these different solo streams or whatever, but that guy consistently pulls random people and then grabs them. And I feel like, yes, there are times where teams get lucky. There are times where scouting is good. There's times where certain environments allow you to succeed, and there's certain times where like it's not. You could take the best player and put them on a shit team, and they're going to struggle. But you can also be a great team and scout someone, and you're just good at scouting. And that's why you tend to be a good team.
I mean, I didn't mean to say it was all one or all the other one. I think that the scouting skill seems to be a little bit overrated. It seems like team environment and constructing a positive one seems to be drastically more important.
I think you're right and you're wrong there in that I actually don't feel like people talk about scouting talent too much. I mean, maybe I'm crazy and I'm missing stuff, but I don't feel like this is like a big conversation that has taken place in the LCS, partially because you've seen so much turnover in teams that like the amount of teams that can say we're good at scouting or we're bad at scouting are probably limited to just like a handful. Secondly, I think I forget the second thing.
Well, so what I'd say to jump in is that there's multiple kinds of scouting too. There's like talent development scouting, which is like great. We have 3 rookies in the entire league right now. Like whoop-de-doo. You have Onda, Licorice, and arguably Solo. I think are the only 3. So like, how much talent scouting really matters compared to, I understand this person's personality. In my interviews with them, in my discussions, in my due diligence, I found that they would probably work well with these other people, yada, 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 which is where I think you can say 100 Thieves scouting seemed pretty good, that these guys all get along well, whereas like, I don't know, FlyQuest or maybe Optic, you could say the scouting maybe seemed worse, but who knows what their options were as well.
Yeah. Either way, Ben, thank you so much for your call. This is actually a really interesting topic, and I don't mind you being a little hyperbolic with the way that you said it, because I think it's something I haven't heard too many people talk about before.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I love the show, love the content. Keep it up.
Thanks. And
thanks, Ben.
Sorry, Ron Paul's not an option for you anymore.
Have a good one, guys.
Have a good one.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, no, the thing that's really different about scouting in NALCS in particular versus like traditional sports, for example, is like so many of our players we pull are from already, professional leagues where we have so much tape and somewhat to what degree they will compete at the professional level, whereas traditional sports you're pulling from college or you're pulling even from high school sometimes. And it's like it's actually understanding how we think this person will acclimate to the professional atmosphere.
Yeah. All right. We need to start coming up with some sort of
Butt Templar?
Standards.
What's wrong with Butt Templar?
Standards for the names of the people that call the show.
It's actually a league reference.